basically data privacy. So I'll start with the data privacy. And this defines actually who accesses the data. Those who have actually been having rights to access them and manipulate data. So we're talking about data privacy, or the act of actually letting data be left alone, or can only be accessed by the people who are authorized to do so. When you talk about data protections, these are basically tools that we normally use, and basically tools and policies, if I say so, that are actually restrict the access, to the data. That's how you can actually be able to define it. So why is data protection? What exactly is this data protections in details, and actually why is it important? And actually what do you need to understand as a data practitioner here? So data protection is basically a strategy, and this actually normally provides processes that can actually be able to ensure, one, there's a privacy, two, availability, and three, the integrity of the data. So sometimes actually we can also refer to these data protections as a data security. Because actually if you look at actually those components that I mentioned, the privacy, the availability, and actually the integrity, it's all about actually data security. And with this one actually is very important. It's a very important actually, talk about data protections, it's a very important strategy for an organization, because you need to ensure that whatever you have collected, it's actually used in the right way. It has actually been handled in the right way, and it's only being accessed by the right people. So data protection strategies is important, for all organizations, be it a private organizations, a government entity, you need actually to have it within the organizations. So I've actually seen that data protection strategy, it's basically, is very important to an organization that actually collects, handle, also stores sensitive data. This one actually is, you're trying to prevent it from a number of things. One, talk of actually of loss of data, theft, and sometimes actually because you store these actually in a machine, the machine actually may get corrupted, and then actually you're not able to retrieve the data again. So this one will help us to minimize the damage that can actually cause in an event of actually of a breach or basically disasters. Well, what are the principles can you be able to use, or can you be able to implement when talk about data protections? So data protection principles, they help to protect data and also actually make it actually available under any circumstances. So it covers actually a number of things. One, backups, and two, the business continuity, and also business recovery. So this normally involves implementation aspect of data management and also data availability. So here are some of the key data management aspects that are relevant to data protection. One of them actually is the availability. So availability, we are looking at actually as you just ensure that actually the users can access and actually can be able to use the data, whenever required. So, and they can be able to perform business processes. So if exactly is not available, and then it basically means that people will not be able to access it, people will not be able to do things they are supposed to do within the organization. And then also we have now data lifecycle management, and this basically involves basically automating the transmissions of critical data. Whether you're doing it offline, or offline, to storage also actually comes into play. Then also there's information lifecycle management, and this basically involves evaluations. You try to cataloging and basically protecting the information assets, from various sources, and this normally include, facilities actually like outage and disruptions, talk about actually applications, maybe the user's error, machine failure, and actually sometimes even malware can actually have an attack. So then actually we started by data protections. Now let's look at actually what is data privacy and now why is it important. So data privacy, I can actually say, is basically a guideline. It's a guideline on how data should actually be collected and actually basically handled, based actually on sensitivity and actually its importance. So data privacy is typically applied to quite a number of things, quite a number of actually of data, such as actually personal health informations or personally identifiable informations. And these can actually include, for example, financial information, medical records, social security, ID numbers, the names, and even actually birth dates, and actually even actually contact information. So, well, this is exactly how I was trying to basically organize that in terms actually of is there a relationship between actually the privacy and actually data protections? Yes, there is. The privacy will actually ensure that actually whoever is required to access that data is the one actually accessing it. And we talk about security is the option actually of or the strategy of actually ensuring that data is available. And you actually have met actually these three key things. One of them actually is confidentiality, the integrity, and also availability. So that's why if you look at actually the chart actually I'm having there, it's actually trying to show the relationship between actually the privacy, because actually the privacy we have actually said it involves one, collecting of the personal information, and also using and also disclosing this personal information in an authorized manner. And also we talk about data quality and also access of the personal information. So that's why we cannot actually separate the two, data privacy and actually data protections and data protections. So what is this that I'm referring to as personally identifiable information? So we are looking at any information related to an identity or an identifiable, natural person. And in this case, I have quite a number of actually categories here. We have actually what we call the special category of the data. We also have actually data bio, and also we have actually data appearance, actually data education and jobs, data actually on private lives, and also data on health. So all these actually, if you look at it, it's able to identify maybe a human being or a person. So like, for example, the special category data, we have in the race, we have actually ethnic origin, political opinions. And the reason actually I group them actually under the special category of data is because actually people can actually be able to use them to trying to, it can actually be used against you, or people can actually use them actually to be able to, in the context of actually of trying to purport to be you. So that's what I'm referring them actually as special category data. So things like, for example, the biometric data, the health data, and actually the health data is actually can be used whereby one can actually expose actually your details to the insurance firms, and then actually when you contact now the insurance firm, you'll actually find that actually your premium actually is a bit higher compared to any other person. So it can actually be used actually to your disadvantage. So we can actually classify these into the following as one, those ones actually are more sensitive, and those that actually are less sensitive. So the more sensitive ones actually, you'll find actually they are like secrets, and also the personal ones. And those ones actually are less sensitive, can actually refer them actually as non-personal ones. And if you look at actually the secret ones, like actually, for example, the password, the passport numbers, the health data, the GPS coordinates, talk about the religions, the political affiliations, those who can actually refer them actually as very sensitive, and actually should actually be handled properly. So, and also like personal one, actually, you find actually there are things you can be able to relate with. Talk about, name, home address, email address, home telephones, like even actually gender identity and actually so on and so forth. So they are still actually personally identifiable informations. So the reason actually I've classified them that way, so that actually you know how you can be able to handle them, especially if you are the custodian of this particular data. And then we talk about actually processing of these, personal identifiable informations. So what actually mean by processing? Processing, you're talking about it's any operation or at least set of operations which at least is performed on this personal data, or even at least set of the personal data. So whether or not actually by automated means, such as basically maybe correcting, recording, organizing, structuring, or storage, actually, or even adoptions. Those are things that I'm referring to as basically as processing. So, like for example, you can talk about processing like a payroll. When you're doing that, you'll be collecting people's actually details, such as actually maybe their names, their gender, the academic qualifications. So those are one actually I'm referring to as the way of actually processing. So it actually be processed. So when you're processing, you must actually process it in a way that actually is within the law, within actually the law. Within the law. So, well, the other things that we have mentioned there, like for example, access, who is actually basically accessing these actually, personal information, identifiable informations. And also when you're sending, you'll actually be sending them through basically the emails. You'll also actually be, some of them can be able to watch them actually with the video, like maybe the CCTV. The CCTV collect a lot of data. And also some of them actually like a posting photos of the persons on the website, and how you can actually be able to also to destroy them actually once actually you're done actually with them. So there are methods you can actually be able to destroy them. Actually, if you no longer actually need this particular data. So now in our country, we have Data Protection Act, and this Data Protection Act is one that's guiding all of us who are actually collecting data, and they are actually custodian of data. So in a nutshell, Kenya Data Protection Act, this one came into force 11 November 2019, with the aim of actually one, promoting innovations and also be able to protect the data of the individual. And it's basically an act that actually trying to guide all of us. So I'm not intending to go through what actually is in this particular guide, but I've actually been able to capture some of the key things, all the clauses that actually be able to find them there. So we have the preliminary, these are basically terms and definitions, and object and purpose, failing to recognize the fairness and even transparency, storage limitations, and basically accountability. That's what we'll be able to find on there preliminarily. And then also on part 2, we also have actually established the Office of Data Protection Commissioner, which actually is already there in force. Actually, it's one regulating those who are collecting data, and actually managing and actually ensuring that actually people are operating within the framework of law. And then also we have registration of the controllers, data controllers, and also data processors. So if you want to become actually a data controller, then actually you need to be registered. And actually, once that you get registered, you'll actually be given now the license to be able to do that and to operate as either a controller or basically as a processor. So it's the role of the organizations, and this requires requirements on the types of the personal data to be processed and even the purpose. And the office of the data protection officer who's at least doing that. Then also there are the principles and the obligations for the personal data protections. And then also we have another one, talk about the grounds for processing of a sensitive data. And also we'll have actually another clause that's talking about the transfer. Whenever you want to transfer data from maybe outside the country. So are you transferring to an organization, rather to a country or to an area where they don't have such kind of an act or such kind of regulations? So those are things that we have been captured there. And also basically those are going to be able to find there. So there are quite a number of things, including actually the, enforcement actually provisions, whereby if you actually are found actually to be against the law or against actually the act, that actually what you're likely to be fined. You're likely to be fined actually, 5 million Kenyan shillings. Those are some of the things that you'll be able to get in this particular act, which actually is already in force. Now, I've mentioned two things here, and actually you're likely to fall in either of these two. One of them actually is basically a data processor and also data controllers. So for a data processor, so this is an organization that actually collects data, process, stores, and even sometimes actually transmit or disseminate these personal information. So that particular organizations, we can actually refer to it as a data processor. So these particular organizations, it needs to maintain an audit trail of all the processes that have taken place in regard to the data that have been collected. And in these organizations, they are the one actually who will actually be ensuring that actually the data was collected in the right way, stored in the right way, and actually is supposed to give actually rights and basically privileges on actually who should actually be able to access this particular data. Then also we have the data controller. So for the data controller, here we are looking at as an organization for a person that actually directs the processor, activity. So he is one who direct now the processor's activities. He is actually the one who is supposed to define how and actually why of the personal data processing, how and actually why, of the personal processing of actually of data should actually be carried out. So you need to know where you fall as, are you falling as actually as a data controller or actually as a, data processor. And then, so as a data processor or as a data controller, you need to be licensed. You need to be licensed, rather you need to be registered with this particular Data Protection Commission. So, and this actually is an example of a form that you need to basically have, and actually you need to fill these forms. Actually, once actually you fill these forms, well, actually by form actually is not very clear, but it's because I captured some from somewhere. So you need to specify whether you are actually a data processor or a data controller, and actually you need to put out your details there, the telephone numbers, the emails, where you're located, and so on and so forth. And also, if you're intending to collect the personal data, so you actually need to use this kind of form whereby you talk about the description of the personal data to be processed. You need to use this one as a template, which actually should actually have it within organizations. And we have what we call the category of data subjects, the purpose of the processing, and actually the recipient to whom the personal data is being disclosed. There's another form that also you need to fill and actually be able to put it to the Data Protection Commission. Then also we have the thresholds for mandatory registrations. So whether you're actually basically a data controller or data processor, there's actually a mandatory registration that you must actually be adhere to. So and here are some of the things actually I captured from the third schedule that actually have put into force. One of them actually is if you're, for example, operating the credit bureau, you must actually be registered. Actually, you must actually state what actually you're basically doing there. And also, you talk about if you're doing actually the gaming and betting operators, also actually should be registered as well. If you're actually dealing with the health administrations and profession of the patient care, the hospitals, industry farms, they also need to be also registered as well. And also faith-based or even actually religious institutions, because actually they collect data. You'll actually find that actually in religious institutions, neighbors are asked to register, to give actually their details, their personal phones. Maybe you can talk about actually things to do with where they stay, which are also very sensitive. So they should actually operate within the law. So all these actually are basically, people who should actually be registered. Actually, if you are intending to do either of this, whether you're actually also trying to do, for example, crime prevention and protections of offenders, and actually you're operating a security CCTV, and then actually you must actually tell the organizations actually why you're collecting that data, for what reason, and for how long are you going to keep it within your systems. So there are legal basic for collecting and basically processing data. And actually, especially when you're dealing with the personal identifiable information. So you need to talk about actually one, the consent. It should be a consent to the person that actually you're about to collect data from, or maybe if you're getting data from me, there should be that particular consent that actually, yes, I've allowed you to, have this particular data, and actually, you can actually be able to use it. And then there should be a contract between actually the person actually who is collecting data and actually the one actually whose data is being collected as well. There should be actually that. So, and actually there should be a legitimate interest. What is the purpose actually of what you're collecting? What is the purpose actually of what you're collecting? So, and for what reason, and that should remain within that particular interest. So if it actually goes beyond that, and then it means that you have actually you've breached the contract that actually you had actually established. And then actually we also have what we call the legal obligations. So in case actually you violate actually, if actually what actually had agreed terms and conditions actually were basically valid. So what are now the legal obligations actually as either a data controller or actually a basically data operator. So you actually need to look at that. Then also there's a public task, and also vital interest actually as well, so should come in. Then the other scopes, basically the scopes, basically this one is a sample, it's scope of actually of collection and basically processing data, and so data that is being collected today, and how you can be able to identify the personal identifiable informations. So for example, when people are actually doing actually job applications, or rather when you advertise for an opportunity within organizations, and then actually people will actually send data to you, will actually send their CVs. So whatever actually they're going to send to you, it will mainly be containing actually personal identifiable information. So because actually we'll be having like names, the email address, the physical address, the phone numbers. So those one can actually refer them actually as a personal identifiable informations, which actually must, you must actually take care of them. And, there's a legal basis actually for processing of that, because actually you must be having the consent with the person actually who is actually sending that. And then also, like, for example, staff informations. Well, actually, a number of you actually are employed, and in your organization, actually, you hold specific actually information in regards to actually to the staff. So there are things such as actually the names, the next of kin, date of birth, maybe their passport number or ID number, the bank details, their CVs, all that you can be able to classify them actually as a personal identifiable informations. And also those people who are collecting it might be in the HR department, so might be having a system that is able to do that. And also might also be having CCTV within the organization. So every time actually when the staff comes in, they actually basically recorded, the activities actually are basically recorded. We might also be having other systems that are actually also collecting data on a daily basis. Like for example, when the staffs log in, when they are coming in, they have to clock somewhere that they have attended when they are leaving organizations. So they are actually quite important actually information, and actually should be actually protected, should actually be protected. The other thing that you can talk about is, customers' information as well, because actually customers actually also, they also provide very sensitive information to the organizations, and they provide actually, for example, their names, their bank details, their physical address, their phone numbers, the next of kin, and there are various ways you can actually be able to correct that, either by when they're actually interacting with your systems, or when actually they are, visit actually within organizations. So the legal basis here for processing this one should be actually on contract for how long they are going to hold that information actually. Then also we have other platforms that you find that are commonly used, like actually website. Like for example, some of the common websites that we normally have, like actually e-commerce sites. They collect quite a number of actually informations. Not only that, some of the browsers actually they are having some features that actually are able to collect actually data like cookies. So to what extent actually do they collect that, and actually how should you now be protecting that? So for the website, you're talking about the user's activities, the type of actually the browser and the IP address that they're using, for example, locations, and so on and so forth. Then also there's only the third party information. The third party here, you're talking about locations, the names, the CV, the phones. So this one can be able to get them either through portals, through manual collections, and this one you should be able to have a consent and handling response. So are there rights actually of data, rights of the data subject according to Data Protection Act, and also data protection actually principles. So in terms of these rights, we have actually rights to informations, and actually this is actually the owner of the data. He has got that right to informations. So information is actually you need to be informed of the use of which types of the personal data that actually has been collected, to what extent actually would you want to actually use it. So you need to know that. And then also there is the right to access. So for example, my information has been captured by a particular entity, either government entity or private entity. So I have that right to access it, and actually to access this personal data in custody. So I should also be able to be given rights to be able to, like for example, change, to modify. Once I can be able to access it, I can actually be able to basically modify it. And then also we have rights to objects, and actually this is objection, that is. So is to object the processing of all or part of the personal identifiable information. So you have got right. So you also have got right of corrections. So in case actually what someone actually is holding is misleading, in case actually what you are holding actually is misleading, then the owner of the data has got that right to tell you actually, now we need actually to rectify this, you need actually to change this to this. Then also they have got right of deletions. So rights to be actually forgotten. So the deletions of any misleading information. For example, you have actually captured actually data concerning a particular individual, and then actually that particular individual, then actually you realize that that information is not right. So he has got that rights, or that rights actually of actually deletions, which can actually be able to delete now that. So those actually are some of actually of rights and basically data protection actually principles you can actually be able to look into. And in terms of law, you can talk about actually exactly whatever has been captured, exactly is it lawful. So those are things you can actually be able to look at. And also you can talk about what is the purpose limitations. To what extent can you be able to use this data? I might have actually given you data for a particular exercise or a particular task, and then actually you go ahead actually and start using it and processing it differently. So there should be that purpose of actually of limitations. So then also talk about actually data minimizations. You don't actually hold more than actually what actually is required. Then also there's aspect of accuracy. Is it correct? And also the storage limitations as well. And also the integrity and actually confidentiality also comes into play. You can actually also do what you call, as a data protection practitioner, you can also be able to do actually what you call data protection risk assessment. And this actually will help your organization just to ensure that actually protection of the personal data and even the personal involved in the personal processing data should actually understand the concept of risk. And this normally includes several things. One of them actually is a method of actually identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and also basically treating those particular risks. For example, there is what we call actually processing of actually sensitive personal data, and this can be, for example, the children's data. You can talk about large scale processing that is affecting a number of actually of individuals, regular and also systematic actually monitoring of the public actually areas. So how can you be able to carry out this risk assessment? So first of all, you need to identify the risk. So you're talking about identification of assets within the organizations, and also identification of threats. Could there be threats that directly within that? And also you can be able to identification of existing controls, and also you can be able to identification of vulnerability, and also identification of consequences. And then once you identify all that, then you can be able to do what we call the analysis. You need to assess the consequences. You need to assess, these particular incidents, is there likelihood of it reoccurring, and what are the levels of the level of risk determinations. You can be able to do it under the analysis. Then you also need to do the risk evaluations, and on this one here is based on the risk evaluation criteria. And then also from there, you can also be able now to do the treatment. If the risk has already been identified and basically analyzed and then evaluated. So you now start how do we now mitigate that? So we're talking about the risk treatment. So the risk treatments options, they are there, and also you can come up with the plans, and also you evaluate those how you can be able to do it. And then also there's a risk acceptance. So that the risk treatment plans is basically an acceptance that yes, there are actually some risk that concerning the data. Then on data protection, impact and assessment. So when processing of the personal data, met two or more of the criteria. So we can look into this. So we have what we call biometric data processed for identification purposes. And then also, you can also be able to identify the automated decision making, such as basically the use of algorithm profile. So this one can classify them as, data protection impact assessment. So you can see just a great number of things, including, for example, data collected by third parties, using of the new innovative solutions, and also basically new technology, location data, basically location for the data, exception for the rights to be informed, mitigation from one systems to to at least another ones. Those are basically for to be able to have there. And then we also have data protection privacy policy, data protection and policy. So as an organization, you need to have a policy, and these are those who works in maybe in IT and HR and also finance. They should come up with policy, and this policy should stipulate very well on how you can be able to handle data within organizations. So a policy and the paragraph this one depicted from that act. So they can be able to the nature of the person data is collected and held, how data subjects may access their personal data and even exercise their rights. So those are some of the things that you need to include in your policy. So as organizations, you need to have a policy, and just to ensure that that particular organization is adhering to the Data Protection Act. So you need to have this person that I'm referring to as a data protection officer, and is a person within the organizations who ensures that data is well protected, and you come up with the strategies on how we should be able to collect data. So this person should be a professional, should be able to have should be there's some actually ethics and actually intelligence should actually this person should be possessing. Should be knowledgeable on actually on data processing, and really also should be have ability of to perform the role actually of data protection officer. So this actually is the role. These are basically the role of this particular person that I'm referring to as a data protection officer. He is one supposed to define the map of the risk associated with the data protections and also set up actually the control. He's one also supposed to be analyzing the impact of the new ways of processing data and basically protections. He's also supposed to ensure, that continuous actually compliance with actually the regulations, such as actually, for example, Data Protection Act. So he's supposed to also be organizing the training on data protections awareness, especially to the staffs, the people that he is working with within the organizations. So he's supposed to do that. So one of the things that you need to be doing is creating awareness and also training, and especially to those who are working within organizations and those who are actually collecting data, and those who are processing data. So you can actually be able to have actually general training on the staff regarding data protections. I can be able to have that. I can also have training of a specific staff who are involved in the management of data. We can also be able to training of a specific staff, like actually the controllers and basically the processors who are actually now dealing with a particular risk regarding the processing of the data within the organization. So that's what you can actually be able to do. So then also we have actually data protection and privacy control. You need to come up actually with you need to design, this actually data privacy should actually either be designed or actually should be available by default. So by data protection, by design, it basically means you're designing a technology and also the systems that actually reduces the degree of intrusions into the personal data. And also the data protections by default, this comes after now the data privacy by design. So it basically means that once actually the product or service or systems program actually is in use, it has actually that strict data protection settings that are actually applied by the default. And then we can also talk about the data protection and privacy control. This one is basically for personal data. You can be able to minimizations or actually de-identifications. And in this case, I'm talking about you removing the personal data from the data sets. If, for example, you want to use it actually for public, you can be able to hide them. You can also be able to come up with a pseudo. So you don't actually pick the actual names. I can actually be able to, instead of actually referring someone like Peter, I can actually refer him to, a particular number, which can actually be able to use a token, you can be able to mask it, and so on and so forth. So now, in technology, if you are to protect your data, maintain that privacy in the organizations, one thing that you need to do is you need to have actually encryptions. So an encryption is basically a process whereby data is normally converted, from a readable form to an unreadable form, especially when it is on transit. So you can be able to use various, technology that is available, that is there in the market. You can be able to use actually the public key. You can be able to use actually those public key infrastructure, whereby you use actually specific keys and actually encrypt your data. So actually its own recipient who can actually be able to actually access that. Then also there's also called data protection and actually privacy control in terms of actually information classifications. So data should be classified and actually handled based actually on sensitivity, critical to the organizations. So there is that one that really is that's meant for public. So this one to be consumed by the public should be free and actually should be disclosed to the public. They also that are meant for internal ones. So we're talking about data not meant for the public disclosure. You can also have actually within organization can be able to have actually confidential. That actually means you organize that particular data and actually classify it as a confidential. So these are sensitive ones, and they can only be accessed by specific people. And if, for example, access actually is, if you're granting access, should actually be done actually cautiously. And then also we have restricted. These are basically highly sensitive corporate data that actually, if compromised, could actually put the organizations into financial risk or legal issues. So on data protection and actually privacy control, you can be able to have now the access control. Who should actually be able to access it? So nowadays, actually, we're having mechanisms on defining who should actually be able to access this kind of information and who should not actually access it, and how they should actually be able to access it. So we normally have various ways when actually we're doing that in technology, and actually it's available in the market, which can actually be able to use to protect your data. And then also for logging and basically monitoring, also this also should have that control. And basically, when you have now the CCTV within the organizations, you are able to capture what actually people are doing in their website and so on and so forth. So we're talking about logging and monitoring. So some of these early devices, they normally collect a lot of data, which can actually be able to analyze data and actually can be able to classify them actually as sensitive information or not sensitive information. So you're talking about collecting logs from all the systems and applications. And really, when you're doing that as a data practitioner, you'll be able to know actually that who's trying to access. Is there a breach that actually have actually taken place? You can also be able to monitor your IT infrastructure to identify the security and incidences, or could there be data breaches? You can be able to do that. You can also try to investigate and actually basically respond to those security events and actually incidents. Then also for the technical security measures, you actually need to have, like, for example, databases or database servers, and these are only processed data, personal data that is basically necessary, and that they should be encrypted, and really ensure that whether data is on transit or actually is at rest, should be actually be encrypted. You can also be able to implement things like actually, for example, network access controller, firewall. You can actually be able to do backups. If it's about mobile devices, actually, also mobile devices are collecting a lot of data nowadays. So you should actually have policy on how this actually should be used within organizations. They should as well be protected as well. So, and also basically, if you're actually not in need of that data, let's say you have actually used it for quite some time, rather you no longer need this particular data, then actually you should actually erase it or basically dispose it. So there are proper ways actually of disposing this particular data or destroying it. Try to destroy it in a way that actually, even if, for example, you are decommissioning a computer or actually you are disposing a hard disk, no one should actually pick it and trying to recover data that actually was written earlier. So you should look for a way to be able to ensure that actually your data is completely, deleted. Then also data protections compliances challenges. There are basically a great number of challenges, especially if you are to ensure that your data is actually well protected. And the actually one data subject consent, basically like approval. So the controller actually must be able to prove that actually the processing of data has been actually consented by the owner of the data. So the controller actually will need to have the mechanisms in place just to enable that data is actually data subject to withdraw the consent. Whenever they wish it, you can actually be able to do that. And also, so having that document that should prove that actually indeed actually I was given this data by so and so, and actually he signed here, that becomes actually a challenge. Then also right to erase and data portability. So the controller actually must erase data when actually requested, from all systems. And actually you'll find actually sometime actually you may erase data, but actually there are some that have remained there. So within organizations. Then also the compliance actually with third party, you need to demonstrate that the third party, applies the high standard actually of protections of the personal data. And also the cost that actually comes actually with the, maintaining or putting security measure to be able to protect your data also comes into play. So for implementing data protection framework, you can be able to use this. Where I'm running out of time, and these are basically various steps that you can actually be able to look into. And one of them actually is it's awareness and also communications, strategy, tactical and basically operation layer, and then you can be able to have actually Data Protection Act compliance assessments, and then actually you can also have actually the development of actually data protection policies and procedures within organizations. Then actually you implement those actually data protection control, ensures that the customers consent actually are processed properly, and also ensure that actually there is data breaches basically identified. Data breaches are basically identified, and also data protection actually impact assessment, and then actually the last one there is basically data protections officer appointment, which will actually be within the organizations and ensuring that actually all those things that we have talked about are basically adhered to and they are basically implemented within organizations. Well, there is also ISO. ISO can actually be able to give you more information actually on privacy information management systems within the organizations. So if you have actually come up with the systems that actually are able to protect and actually ensure that the privacy of personal information is adhered to, you can also be able to look actually can only get certification from ISO. ISO is one of the bodies that actually ensures that actually that organizations are adhering to the privacy. So good. Well, actually, these are prerequisites. I'm not intending to go through that, but actually, it's another area that actually, as a data practitioner, you can be able to explore further and actually learn more about the ISO, 27001 as a prerequisite, especially when you're building information security management systems within organizations. So this is basically what I've talked about. It's basically registration actually of data controller, which actually is a must. You must actually do that as a data practitioner. So we normally have at least some annual registrations with actually the Office of Data Protection actually Commissioner, and as a data controller or as a data processor, you need to be registered there. And then actually there is a notification of the breach, which we have talked about. We need to notify this particular commission actually within 72 hours, sorry, within 72 hours. Actually, yes, we have actually had a leakage of actually this particular data. And then also we have data protection policy that you must actually implement within organizations, and that you need to develop, you need to publish and regularly update your policy reflecting to the personal data handling practices within that organization. And then also we'll have performance, sorry. We'll also have actually performance actually of data protection actually identify analysis. And this actually is you track the personal data flows, across your business processes, and basically you're trying to identify the threats, you come up actually with the mission, the countermeasure, and actually submit that to the commission as well. And then actually the last one is a penalty. If you don't conform to the act, there's actually a penalty. If you don't do that, usually it's basically up to 5 million, or basically 1% of the annual turnover. So as a compensation, if there is a data breach. So that's it. I think actually I've taken longer than actually than I was given that. I was given actually 40 minutes, but I think actually I've exceeded actually 40 minutes. I had a lot of things to basically mention, but those are basically some of the things you need to look into as a data practitioner. Well, actually, in the aspect of actually of technology, then actually you need to ensure that actually you have proper technology. Actually, if you're talking about now the policies, you need to formulate the policies that can be able to get actually everyone's within organizations. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. I guess, I believe we've learned a lot from you. So if anybody has a question, you could just unmute or chat it on the chat box.
Hello, thank you for that presentation. I've posted the question on the Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I have seen it, and it reads, please explain the consent using the Zoom registrations, actually where the email and the phones actually are basically required. So, well, this actually is within, what I say, let me put this way. Organizations actually nowadays actually they are asking information regarding to individuals, especially when actually you're enrolling for either a Zoom and actually basically their phones. And actually the reason actually they do that is because actually they would want to identify the person actually who is either one using the applications or two, this person actually if it's like a training like this one here, we want to know who has actually registered this. Well, I find that actually people collecting quite a lot of data, but actually you need to make sure that actually that when you're doing so, this data is actually being captured by the organization that actually is either licensed to do so, by the data protection actually organization or commissions. Because actually they can actually be abused. They can actually be abused. And actually, I've actually seen people complaining that actually they receive, texts or adverts, of product that actually they do not even actually enroll. So, where at least sometimes actually you may not be able to, as a human being, actually as an individual, you may actually not be able to control that simply because one, you want maybe to attend to a meeting, or actually you'd want to have a Zoom as an application in your account or other in your systems. So those are basically some of the requirements. But the organization that is holding that can also be put to task to explain, why are they collecting such kind of information, and for what reasons, and actually we talked about the limitations. To what extent at least should one actually use this? Thank you. So thank you very much. I think that's actually does it for today. Maybe Feristo, you can actually take over.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I believe everyone has gotten a thing or two from the webinar. I want to thank everyone for making it time to attend. I know everybody has busy schedules, so making it for the webinar, we are grateful, and I'd like to wish everyone a lovely day, a lovely evening. Have a good day. Thank you so much.